I've talked a lot about how Breath of the Wild dungeons were not up to par with the previous games. Rudania, the divine beast residing in Death Mountain, is the least impressive dungeon in my opinion. In what is a well-designed Death Mountain, you dive into the core volcano to face, well, something underwhelming. The dungeon is less about fire-based puzzles and more just providing light to the room. Rotating the lizard, or I think this is a lizard, not entirely sure, is probably the most bland of all the divine beast gimmicks. Basically, this dungeon was the biggest letdown. I've talked a lot about how Tears of the Kingdom greatly improved the dungeons, and I think one of the better ones is the Fire Temple. This time when you dive into Death Mountain, you find a whole mine-themed area and temple in the depths. This is a complex structure to say the least. It has 5 floors of unique houses that you must take a minecart to get to each of them. I'm not sure if this is my favorite dungeon, but certainly is up there. What it is a massive improvement over the prequel's Fire Dungeon. It's not that close either, like it's much better. So today let's talk about the Fire Temple and how it improved over Rudania. There is numerous reasons for this and we will break them down here. Let's start with the design. Simply put, it's much better. Breath of the Wild had an issue of many generic designs for its dungeons, very repetitive designs. The divine beasts vary some, but at the end of the day the puzzle aesthetics are just too similar. And of all that, Rudania is probably the weakest of the bunch in my opinion. So Tears of the Kingdom didn't have a high bar to get over. Well, I guess it ain't like a Call of Duty bad bar, but it's still like a feasible bar to get over. And as I mentioned in previous videos, Tears of the Kingdom did a much better job with the variety of the dungeons. And the Fire Temple is a great example of that. It is basically an ancient, multi-level mining shrine. It ascends the landscape of the depths, giving multiple levels to explore and conquer. It makes for a really fun level to play. Already inside the volcano is much more exciting as Breath of the Wild was just simply a dungeon. It just brings you to a whole other world to explore in the depths, which still amazed me they added a whole other world at the bottom of the entire map. Instead of being constrained to Mechanical Animal, which was probably the lamest of all of them, the Fire Temple has multiple layers of puzzles to solve and portions to explore. Like the Tears of the Kingdom version gets me so much more excited just by looking at it. And let me go a little more in depth about the layout too, and how you get around. The Fire Temple once again has a much better, more complex layout. And it can honestly be figured out what the layout is for each of these dungeons by just looking on the outside. Like, there really isn't much to talk about in here in Rudania. You get to explore the top of the lizard and its insides, and that's kind of it. Rotating can make you explore both areas in 2 different ways, but that simply isn't a lot. The Fire Temple has a lot more to it. It has 5 total floors, and each floor feels as complex as Rudania does. All the floors are different buildings you must traverse to, all to find the keys that Goron Kid must slam into, which is a pretty odd way to find a key, but you know. And the biggest difference you notice from the outside is the mine tracks connecting all these structures. How to get around on each floor and how to elevate to higher floors are all based around taking a minecart to ride them to each area, which they all feel unique. Getting to each area on the minecart can be thrilling and puzzling, and exploring this layout emphasizes just how big it is. It's just so obvious how much better the layout is for the Fire Temple and resulting in a much better dungeon. And I do gotta get to the most noble part of any Zelda dungeon, and that is the puzzles and challenges you must solve. Naturally I would like the Fire Temple more, but I would not say it's clear and obvious. Rudania has many puzzles based on getting light into the room, which could be done better. It also has 5 terminals which you must reach and activate, like all the Divine Beasts had, which could be better. Some of them are well done though, like you have to maneuver this ball all the way across the lizard. It goes through this track and you need to rotate the dungeon so gravity can roll this ball down. The puzzle's pretty good, I like it a lot. The Fire Temple probably has better ones though. They are pretty much split into 2 categories, getting to each room and what to do in them. Getting to it is all about the minecarts we just talked about, which it is Tears of the Kingdom. You can approach it in many different ways, but basically you just have to set up a fan on a minecart and push it along the track. And speaking of tracks, there is a ton of them. Part of the puzzle is switching to the right track to get higher in the dungeon. It makes for good navigating skills knowing which path to take and what gets you to the end location. And then once you get to each room, you must solve the puzzles in them, and all are about hitting that gong to open the lock. A lot of those puzzles are also based around minecarts. But you can also use the fire hydrant to cool off the lava. Yeah, you could expect some lava in here as a Fire Temple. In doing so to create a molten rock you can ride across. I also like this too because you got Yumbo and his ability to turn into a ball and just launch into different obstacles. You can use that on ramps and stuff to launch into different gongs or even hit these rocks. And I think the best one of all is when you get to the top of this dungeon, the 5th floor, you have to dive all the way down back to the start, really emphasizing how big this dungeon is. And one more challenge to talk about is the bosses. I've gone over why the Blight Ganons are just disappointing bosses. Basically they aren't a special fight and they're all just too similar. And if you do look into the differences, Rudania probably has the weakest one. So then you have the Marble Goma of the Fire Temple. The throwback to the iconic Zelda boss plays just so much better. And it's probably one of the best Gomas there is, as it's got a reinforced rock skin. It takes some tactical launches of young Goron to take down this Goma. And it just sums up how all the challenges are just better than the Tears of the Kingdom version. I won't say like Landslide better, but they are better. As mentioned at the top, this was the best example of how Tears of the Kingdom dungeons are better than Breath of the Wild dungeons. There are many reasons why each are better, and the Fire Temple probably had the most obvious reasons. In making this video, it really does feel like I'm setting myself up to want to make like what's my favorite temple and, Tears of the Kingdom video. I did talk about the Water Temple before. Don't think that's gonna win it. Great aesthetics, poor gameplay. Yeah, that place needs a little bit of work. And yeah, damn, that actually would be a really good question. Rudania is definitely a good, not great dungeon. In many ways, it can be better. But I think the Fire Temple is an excellent dungeon. Like, I had a blast playing it. I'm still not sure if it's my favorite dungeon in Tears of the Kingdom, but I do know it's better than the Breath of the Wild counterpart.